Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to see what is the best way to install Sitefinity 15 on your machine locally to start developing. So let's go ahead and get started. The best way to start is to open up Visual Studio. There is no more project manager, so you cannot download something from the Sitefinity website to start creating an application for Sitefinity 15 using Project Manager. That has been deprecated, is no longer available. So you'll have to do it actually from the CLI if you're using .NET Core or directly from Visual Studio using Nuget Packages. So let me go ahead and open up Visual Studio 2022, for instance, and I'm going to say create a new project. And in the project, you need to make sure maybe you can filter on C# language, the web, and you would like to look for something called ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework. Make sure you are not choosing something that has the word core in it or standard. It has to be the .NET Framework because the CMS itself requires .NET Framework 4.8. So it has to be this one. And I'm going to say next. And now we'll go, for instance, in here under the project name, we'll call it, for instance, SF15. That's the name of my project. And let's go ahead and create a folder in here on my E drive, for instance, and we'll call it Lino SF15. And that's the location where it's going to go. Make sure that the .NET Framework, it says 4.8 here at the bottom. Very important. If you choose anything else from that list, this application will work, but it's time to actually put in some Nuget packages. It's not going to work, so you're going to be wasting a lot of time. So make sure it's 4.8. We'll go ahead and say create. And then this screen here will ask you which type of ASP.NET application you would like to use. There is the empty one, there is a web forms, MVC, web API, or a SPA application in case you're using Vue or Angular or React or something like that. In my case in here, the first two will work, alrighty? Nothing else will work. Remember, the Sitefinity CMS system on the .NET Framework 4.0, it's 4.8, is not an MVC or an API, it is a web forms application. So you can choose either one of those and it will work. My preference is to start completely empty and let the Nuget package put the exact folders and files and everything else that it needs for that project. So we'll start with empty. I'm going to even turn off the HTTPS for right now so that I don't have to have a developer certificate or anything like that. And we'll say create. And then we will wait a couple of seconds and Visual Studio will create a minimal ASP.NET application in Visual Studio that doesn't know, of course, anything about Sitefinity at all. This is pure Visual Studio and Microsoft creating an ASP.NET application, as you can see in here. And the web.config file will be very small. There's not much in it at all, other than specifying the framework in C# language, and that's about it. To make this work, actually, to make this project become a Sitefinity 15, go ahead and right-click on the SF15 and we'll say Manage Nuget Packages. All right. In the Nuget Package Manager itself, we click on Browse, and you'll notice if you're trying to look for something that has to do with Sitefinity, you will get some, but none of them are the official Nuget packages coming in from Progress themselves. You have to use a different package source to do that. And it doesn't automatically, of course, come with Visual Studio. You'll have to add that the first time you do it. Right now, Nuget.org, that's the Microsoft Nuget repository for everything. It has thousands and thousands of Nuget packages from a lot of different companies in there. Click on this gear on the right, and then make sure you add one yourself. Click on the plus sign in here, and I added already, it's called Sitefinity. The name is not important. You can call it foo if you want to, that's fine. As long as the source here is pointing to HTTPS, don't forget the S, very important, nuget.sitefinity.com/nuget. The name is not important, like I said. I call it Sitefinity so I can remember this is specific to the repository for Sitefinity, and then we'll say OK. Once you do that, I can switch now to the Sitefinity one, and I can start looking for things that has to do with Sitefinity, for instance. And in here, and you will notice the logo for Progress will show up on the left side. That tells you these are the official Nuget packages for Sitefinity. See the logo? And there will be tons of them in here. The one I'm interested in looking at, let's look for Sitefinity.all, for instance, okay? Because I would like to install everything in Sitefinity right now. Once we look for something like this, you might actually end up seeing two of them. One that starts with the word Progress and one that starts with the word Telerik. Telerik.sitefinity.all, think of it as the kitchen sink, okay? It will install everything. Maybe that's not the one that you want for production. Maybe later on, after you know exactly what you're going to build inside of that Sitefinity 15 project, Maybe you would like to come back and remove it and install Sitefinity progress.sitefinity, which is minimal for the core, what it makes it work, and then start installing other Nuget packages regarding the admin app or authentication, whatever. So there is a little bit more work to do if you just want to be very picky on what packages will get installed. I would say in the beginning, when you do not know what the features of the Sitefinity site will be, just install everything for right now so we can have it. And you will notice that the latest one, the latest stable one, is 15.0.8200. By the time you see this video, probably there will be more builds and patches coming up like you always do. You can bring this drop down and you can see there is a lot of different versions in here. 14.4, 8.132 was the last one in the 14.4 family. You can go all the way to 6.3, I believe. That's from almost like 8 or 9 years ago. So you can go back to whatever you want. That's why using this method of Nuget packages is great. So you can actually upgrade, downgrade. You want to check on a bug happened like 2 years ago. You can always do that with Nuget packages. So I'm going to go to the 15.0.8200 and we'll say install. And once you do that, it's going to actually go to the Sitefinity repository that I told it to. It will find it, and you will notice here it's going to install the Sitefinity 15 Nuget packages, everything. 2 dialogues will come up here in the next minute. First one is to let you know all the different packages that will need to be installed. You'll have to okay that. And after that, you have to say okay on the licenses. Okay, so that is the first dialogue. It will tell you I'm going to install things for Ajax, for AWS from Amazon, a lot of Microsoft packages. You will notice there is Lucene for the search. There it is. There are Service Stack. And then, of course, there is all the ones coming from Telerik themselves. That is for the front end and the back end and everything else. So there are tons of things that will need to be installed. We'll say apply. And then the next dialog will ask me to accept the license. Remember, this is not only coming from Progress. Like I said, there are things coming from AWS, from Microsoft, from Lucene, from Service Stack. So you'll have to accept all the licenses. We'll say okay. And now we can give it probably about 2 minutes that it will go and install almost 352 different assemblies in the bin folder and reference them and create the packages and configure the package.config file. It's going to do a lot of things in your project. This project, you will not actually recognize it after it's done. It's not going to be the simple SF15 that we created earlier. It's going to be a full-blown Sitefinity website. So I'm going to stop the video for a second until it finishes installing everything, and I'll come back after the project has been created. And it took about maybe 2.5 minutes or so. It finished, no errors. And if you take a look at our project here in the Solution Explorer, now I got the admin app, the app underscore data, which is a very important folder for Sitefinity, the MVC folder. Most importantly, resource packages to add, so I can get all my Bootstrap and everything else. And it added, of course, a lot of code into the web.config file, in the hundreds of files in here, lines of code, I mean. And we are in pretty good shape. The only way that I know that this is actually going to work, go ahead and right click on the name of the project, for instance, and say build. And we will look at the bottom of Visual Studio. It started the build right now. And I'm hoping within the first 30 seconds or so, this is the first time we do it. So it's creating a brand new cache and OBJ files and everything. But if we do everything correctly, this build will become build succeeded. And I will be able to run it inside of Visual Studio based on my default browser, whether it's Chrome or Firefox or Edge or whatever you'd like as well. So we'll come back after it finishes and we will see this hopefully succeeded. And it did take about 40 seconds, and it says build succeeded at the bottom of the screen here, as you can see. So now I know that all the files and all the different DLLs and assemblies in the bin folder are correct and everything. Let's go ahead and run it. I can run it without debug mode, or I can run it with debug mode. I'll run it without debug mode, and that will open up in my Chrome. Chrome is my default browser. I'll bring it here to the screen as soon as it comes in. There you go. And it shows automatically a random port number 64489. So it's running an IS Express from inside of Visual Studio, so I can actually see the website. So what is it doing right now? It's actually waking up all the different assemblies in the bin folder so that we can actually run for the first time Sitefinity. But immediately, as soon as it starts, it will complain about something. It's not going to give you an error. It will say, I don't have a license. So you'll need to go into your account and download the LIC file for specifically for 15. The 14.41 will not work. You'll have to download a Sitefinity 15 license. And once we add the license, okay, there you go. So I can put my email address and password in here. The problem with this one is that you have to have only one license. Because I actually manage a lot of different licenses in my account, this will not work for me. This will only work if you have only one license. If you have multiple licenses, you really should go and download the LIC file yourself and then upload it like that. So I'll say choose a file, and I believe under my downloads folder I have a couple of licenses for Sitefinity 15. Let's see where they are. There you go, Sitefinity 15 08100 8200. We'll say open this guy up, and once I activate this license, you will notice it will tell you what is the date of activation, the license holder, and all the other information that I need to know about. What did you buy? Did you buy also the site sync with it, the DAM, all of the other things as well? All right, sounds good. We'll say continue. Now Sitefinity can move on to start loading, but it's going to scratch its head again. It will say, but I don't have a database. You never told me which database to use. And you will notice that it's something very special in 15. We don't have Oracle and MySQL anymore. Alrighty, we only have SQL Express and SQL Server, the regular, whether it's enterprise, web, or standard. So you get to choose from those. Bye-bye Oracle, bye-bye MySQL. They are deprecated, no longer available starting 15.0. So I'm going to click on the SQL Express. We'll give it the instance name, for instance, and we'll say continue. Then Sitefinity can even go a little bit further, but it will stop. It will say, wait a second, we do not have an admin. So I don't want to keep going, creating hundreds of different tables and views and stored procedures when I know that there is nobody. It will be orphaned, nobody can access them. So it will stop and will say, at least give me one admin. So I'm going to add my name, Lino Tadros. We'll say lino@foo.com. I'll give myself a password in here. Alrighty, and then I'll say continue. And now everything is satisfied, and Sitefinity will continue creating all its hundreds of different tables in a database and so on. We'll say save. So our favorite gears will come up. This is for hypnotizing you, so you'll be looking at this a lot. But in the good news is, if you're using .NET Core, you will not be seeing gears anymore. So the back end can still be CMS. You'll see the gears in the back end, but when you create your front ends in .NET Core, way faster, and there are no more gears. The compilation of the entire app takes less than a quarter of a second most of the time on my machine. So it's definitely a great thing. So I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll come back after the gears finish. It will usually take, for the first time, maybe about 1.5 minutes on my machine. So I'll come back really soon. And it finished, and it took me directly to the dashboard. Look at the dashboard, looks very nice. Actually, it's not a web form based dashboard like in 14 or 13 or 12. This is a brand new dashboard based all on Angular. Very fast, very customizable, has new components like most visited pages, which is something definitely we're very happy to have in 15. There are other hidden widgets that you don't see because we don't have any errors or any expiration of licenses. But if, for instance, you're within the 60 days of expiration of license, all the way at the top, you'll get a new widget that tells you exactly how many days left, which is good for admins, of course, to understand that. There's also another widget that will show up if it sees something is wrong with the health of the website. So it will tell you, for instance, what could be going wrong. So you can get a pretty good idea from a mile high what is going on with your website. The same thing for content, pages with no SEO description, which is very important for marketeers and so on. And of course, as usual, we have all the news about what's the latest Workato, for instance, to doing integration with third parties and everything else. So this is great. And you can manage the dashboard, and you can actually create different widgets. You can there is a lot of other widgets that you can install in the dashboard to let you know, and the rest of the team, what's going on with Sitefinity as well. Everything else you probably used to from previous versions, like the pages, the content, the design, the administration, and the marketing as well. So hopefully that was a quick video, only like maybe 10-15 minutes max, just to let you know how to install Sitefinity 15 now that there is no project manager anymore. So these are the steps that are needed for an admin or a developer to be able to create a Sitefinity site from scratch. All right, have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video for Sitefinity 15. Thank you.